up, Broncos country? Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest edition of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here, and coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett and all three coordinators as they spoke to the media. Plus, I'll have the latest injury report, and Jets team reporter Ethan Greenberg joins the show to take a look at this matchup from the Jets' perspective. All that and more coming up. The team was back at practice today here at the UC Health Training Center as they are now just 3 days away from their matchup versus the Jets. Russell Wilson was limited again today at practice as he's been dealing with that hamstring injury, and head coach Nathaniel Hackett spoke on who he will talk to and what will go into the decision of whether or not Russell will play on Sunday.
First and foremost, it's Russell. You know, I want to be sure that I'm talking with him, communicating with him, making sure that he's in a good mindset, that he's in a good place, that he can go play high-caliber football. And obviously the medical team is huge. We want to be sure we do right by the doctors. They're the ones that understand everything that's going on. And then George Payton, those are really the people that we're talking. So we're very open dialogue and make sure we want to put somebody out there that's healthy and can go out there and play at a high level. Coach
Hackett did say that all three quarterbacks are preparing this week.
Of course, mentally they're all getting ready to be able to play a football game. They do that every single week with the idea of practice. You want to try to get them all. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of reps, but you try to split it as well as you can to get them prepared.
As the Broncos are set to host the Jets on Sunday, defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero spoke on Jets quarterback Zach Wilson and the type of player he is.
Very talented, thrower, very talented in terms of his athletic ability. Obviously, he's continuing to grow as in terms of the knowledge of the game. But he's a very good player, and he was picked number 2 or whatever for a reason. And so we got a good challenge ahead of us.
And offensive coordinator Justin Outten spoke on the Jets' defense, specifically what he's seen from defensive tackle Quinnen Williams.
He's a dynamic player. He's starting to get comfortable in the scheme, it looks like. He's doing a really good job of pre-snap awareness, just kind of seeing the offensive line, their calls, and their alignments and their stances. You can tell he studies throughout the week and does a great job prepping. And he's just everything else athletically. He's a gifted player.
And special teams coordinator Dwayne Stukes also spoke to the media today and discussed Montreal Washington's muffed punt on a Monday night.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that play because I've been going through a lot of stuff as far as the last 3 days, reliving that play and watching that play. So I'll put it like this. There has to be better communication. There has to be better awareness. The punt was punted straight up in the air. It was probably 4-5, 4-0 or 5-5-0 hang, some hang time around that. We just got to do a better job making decisions, and we got to do a better job as far as knowing where the returner is. That's all I'm going to say.
And as we wrap up the top news of the day, let's take a look at today's injury report. A couple changes from yesterday. Inside linebacker Josie Jewell, defensive tackle DJ Jones, and guard and center Quinn Miners were limited at practice today. Everyone else remains the same. Now let's welcome New York Jets team reporter Ethan Greenberg onto the show to take a look at this week's matchup from the Jets' perspective. Ethan, nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. How's it going up there in New Jersey?
Well, the weather's taking a turn. So from a selfish perspective, very much looking forward to the 70 degrees expected in Denver on Sunday. But in terms of the team, I feel like there's obviously a buzz when you're 4-2. It's kind of hard not to have a buzz around the team, especially being in such a big market. But I really think that this team has come so far from the last time they played, specifically in Denver last year in week 3. It's a totally different team, although there are a lot of returning faces. Just there's been a lot of growth, I would say, on both sides of the ball. Obviously, and then outside of that, there's obviously been a lot of additions on specifically defense with guys like DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, Jordan Whitehead. Marcus Joyner didn't play in last year's matchup. So there's a lot of young, exciting talent, but it's also flanked by some really cool veterans. So the buzz right now in the Florham Park, New York City area is definitely palpable.
Ethan, you mentioned the buzz out there. You guys are on a 3-game win streak, haven't lost on the road yet this season. What's kind of been the mood this week in the locker room? How are the guys feeling out there?
Yeah, the mood in the locker room is to not get complacent. To your point, 3-game winning streak. And a couple weeks ago, before Zach Wilson came back, I was talking to Joe Flacco, and he said that when a young team starts to get some confidence, that's when things, one, can either play in your advantage or play to your disadvantage in terms of complacency. And really, it feels like there's been a turning point for the Jets. If you watch Coach Saleh's post-game speech after beating the Dolphins, he says the messaging was very much, this is starting to be expected from this team. Like, it's not the post-game atmosphere where people are going crazy and it's like a mini Super Bowl. Like, this is starting to become an expected thing for the Jets. At least that's been the internal messaging. So moving on from Green Bay into facing the Broncos this week, it's been, how do you build on top of that? How do you not get complacent? How do you not let the winning like infiltrate the hard work that you put in on a week in and week out basis?
Right. Ethan, I want to look at that Green Bay game for a little bit here. Specifically the defense, they've been pretty dominant so far to start the season, held the Packers last week to 278 total yards, 10 points. What has really impressed you about that unit so far?
The front four, the defensive line. That with Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, Aaron Wyckomm's the defensive line coach, it all starts up front. Quinnen Williams was named AFC Defensive Player of the Week for his performance, and he had one of, if not his best game as a pro last week in Green Bay. But what the Jets want to do is they want to establish up front, and they want to only do it with 4 down linemen, similar to what Robert Saleh did in San Francisco with the 49ers. Right. Like, it's 2 very different personnel packages, but what the Jets do is they have 4 defensive linemen, they start, and then they shuffle in another 4. So they have different packages, different looks, and they want to create a rotation that basically keeps the players fresh. And obviously that's in focus more this week than any other week, given the altitude at Mile High. So What the Jets want to do up front is get after the quarterback. What's impressed me is that they've been actually able to do that very effectively the past 2 games, just with 4 linemen, and that's really opened up things. And obviously when you have DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner playing at the levels that they've been playing at, the pass rush and the pass coverage have really been working hand in hand. And that's the goal for any team. It's really come together for the Jets the past couple of weeks. So I think what's impressed me most, to boil down to one specific thing, is just the ferocity that the Jets defensive line can play with.
Ethan, you mentioned Quinnen Williams. He's had a really impressive start to his 4th season there with the Jets. What do you think's really clicked for him maybe this year?
One is that he didn't suffer any injury. Last year in training camp, he broke his foot. That kind of set him back, learning a new system. So that extra time in the spring and the summer, that has definitely helped too, is the dedication to his craft in the offseason. If you look at a photo of Quinnen Williams the day he was drafted, the bless you, thank you day, you look at a photo of him, you can just see how different his body looks. And I think that's a testament to him. I think that's a testament to the hard work that he's put in terms of nutrition, in terms of the weight room. And you're starting to see that come to fruition on Sundays. And that, I think, is the biggest difference for him. Also, that this is his 2nd year in the same system. So you mentioned, or we talked about the rotation a little bit. So when you factor in the rotation, keeping him fresh, the nutrition and the weight room attitude, and then also being in year 2, it's all kind of clicking for him right now.
Well, looking at this offense, Ethan, Zach Wilson, he hasn't lost a game since his return in week 4. What have you really liked about him, and what are some of your expectations for him on Sunday, going up against a really stout Denver defense here?
Yeah, my thing with Zach Wilson in terms of what's impressed me the most is he hasn't thrown for the most yards, right? He hasn't thrown the ball all over the field, but he's made plays when the Jets have needed him to. If you take a look at last week, just an example, he really wasn't finding a rhythm in the first half, and then he finds Corey Davis on a 41-yard play when the Jets need it. The next play, Braxton Berrios scores. The next possession, they block a punt and score. That's a 2-possession swing. So really Zach's attitude. And then 2 is he's looked a lot calmer in the pocket. And I think that you can see him going through his progressions a little quickly compared to last year, where maybe you were like, oh, that didn't look quite right. I think that his calm feet in the pocket, his ability to diagnose has been better than last year. Granted, he hasn't put up gaudy numbers. And in terms of this weekend, I think this could be the Jets' toughest test to date, specifically through the air, whether that's Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson under center, when you look at who the Broncos have, what they're doing, how well they're playing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Zach Wilson responds this week, because last year in Denver, the Jets were shut out 26-0. And obviously there's a lot of returning faces on that Denver defense, even though there's some changes in terms of personnel and coaching. I do believe that it looks, and Mike LaFleur was just talking about it, this is easily a top 3 unit in football. So to me, that's what I'm looking forward to see how much better Zach Wilson looks against a very similar defense in year 2.
Well, it seems like the Jets have kind of really found their identity on offense, with running back Breece Hall and just their run game the past couple of weeks. How has he really impressed you, with the start of his rookie season?
So Robert Saleh talked about that the progression for Breece Hall going from, let's say, a rookie to more of a seasoned rookie was going to be how he really hits the hole. And Breece Hall coming from Iowa State and just being a different game in college, he was, I don't want to say like he was dancing a little bit, but there was a little bit more where it's like, okay, maybe a little more indecision. And then Robert Saleh said, the progression here is going to be how decisive you are. And he, like the flip of a switch, just did it in a week. And I feel like you're starting to see that, especially the past 2 weeks with the Rookie of the Week belt, with the FedEx Ground Player of the Week. And you started to see that. And now the question for the Jets is, how are they going to respond when teams start to cater their defenses a little bit to Breece Hall and Michael Carter, who also has been having a very good season? So to me, the most impressive thing has been how quickly Breece Hall has picked up his vision. And you saw it at Iowa State, but there's a learning curve coming to the NFL. But I think how quickly he's progressed in that learning curve has been the thing that's most impressive to me, specifically with his vision.
Well, Ethan, there's a lot to be on the lookout for here in Denver on Sunday. Really appreciate your time and your insight today.
Awesome, Sydney. Thank you. Looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, see you then. And before practice today, we heard from backup quarterback Brett Rippon and got his thoughts on the potential of facing the Jets again and how he's preparing for this week if Russell is not able to go on Sunday.
They're obviously, a much different defense now, a lot of different guys. But, obviously that was a very special night for me a couple years ago. And, if I got an opportunity again, that would be great. Keep it the same, prepare like I do every single week. And that's obviously to get ready to play.
And wide receiver KJ Hamler spoke on facing this Jets defense.
They got good defense. My boy Sauce from Detroit, same area I'm from. That's my guy. So, he's been balling out lately. We gotta attack that defense. We gotta make plays. I think we got a lot of playmakers on this offense that can go out there and execute on every down. So we just got to execute.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in today and every day. I hope you'll meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for a game preview tomorrow afternoon. I'll see you all then.